Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today, he's done it again. You might have seen over the past 2 or so weeks since Division Day that there have been a lot of interviews and articles dropping in which Yannick, who's of course the creative director on the Division 2, has been interviewed by a lot of these different outlets across the internet, and in those have been some really juicy nuggets of information about Year 5. We covered one previously about how he confirmed that there is a new item type coming with Year 5 Season 4 and the season's revamp and all of that stuff. And so, there's been another latest one that has dropped, and you might have seen some people cover the entire thing recently, and there are some good bits in there. He talks about crossplay, some other stuff. I'll leave the full thing down below so that you can check it out for yourself. But what I really want to focus on from this is when he talks about Seasons 2.0. We know that's something they teased is coming later on in the year in Season 4, but what he says in this really changes my mind about how we can look at this new revamp that's coming our way. Because it seems like it's not just going to touch seasons, but their promise of a brand new endgame is not an understatement. This is bigger than I expected, and I don't think the Division 2 will ever be the same again. So without further ado, let's get into this. Alright, so as I said, the full interview will be in the description below, so feel free to check it out. There's some cool stuff with, like I said, crossplay. He talks about cross-game rewards between the Division 2 and Heartland. Great stuff there. But by far, this is the most intriguing thing that he says, in my opinion. So, the interviewer says, "We know it might be a little too early to talk about it, but can you give us a tease on how the Division 2's endgame will change in Season 4? And he says, this is a long answer, but I'm going to go through the whole thing because it's very important. We are looking at when you play the Division 2 and when you play a lot of very content-heavy life games that there's always that moment when you're a player, you start, you learn the game, you learn the tropes, you play the story, and then the end game begins, and that's usually very daunting, and suddenly the whole thing opens up and you get lost in it. The main ambition behind that change, revamp, and he's talking about the seasons here, is to create an endgame that is going to be more welcoming to new players, so doing a better job at introducing new mechanics and introducing new modes and experiences, really trying to give a purpose to each and every one of them, so it's not just I want gear, so I can either play countdown or main missions, or I can play the manhunt and everything gives the same rewards. It's trying to find ways so that there's a reason why you would want to play this versus that depending on what you're after. In terms of cadence and how we are connecting all seasons, you can expect a big overhaul of seasons with Season 4 and how seasons are built and how seasons are rewarding players. It's really about the general structure of it. Why do we come back to the game? What do you want to do when you come back? What kind of rewards are you after? And really trying to have something that takes place in all of those pieces and reconnects them in a way that makes a bit more sense compared to what we have now. Wow. Well, I'm only going to speak for myself here, but this sounds like exactly everything I've ever wanted them to do in the Division 2. And I'm kind of stunned to read this quote because, like, we've talked about here on the channel so many times about how myself and many of you have had similar thoughts about how they could restructure the endgame to just be a better overall setup for this type of a looter shooter, where when you get to the endgame, everything is incredibly horizontal, right? If you want to go and try raids off the bat, nothing is stopping you from getting in a raid group and doing that. It's just about if you have the right types of builds and if you have enough relative power, but there's no gear score, there's nothing like that, so nothing is really blocked off from you in the endgame, right? And this is not saying that they're going to be changing that, but what it does say is that suddenly, at least their goal is that each of these different facets of the endgame and these different activities are going to have various reasons that you would want to play them. I mean, I remember talking about this probably years ago where I was like, it would be kind of cool if, like, let's say control points gave you more loot than other places, and maybe bounties give you more XP than other places, and this and that, and if everything has its own individual reason why you would play it, there's more of an incentive to engage with different types of content in the game, and I think that is nothing but a good thing. Like, yes, there are those people out there who just like to they probably just grind countdown every single day since the day it dropped, and they're fine with doing that, and more power to you. I have a feeling countdown is always going to be a great way to earn loot and play the game. But I would say for the majority of players of this game, especially if you ever see people saying that the Division 2 is, you know, in a content drought, or it just doesn't have enough content in general, like, on an objective basis, the Division 2 has a ton of content. Upwards or probably even more than 20 main missions you can engage with and replay, bounties, open world stuff, multiple game modes, just so much stuff. The reason why it can feel like there's not a ton of stuff to do is because not everything offers something unique. Countdown and Summit, and maybe Descent, depending on what the reward structure there is going to be, offer you these unique ways to earn loot and ways you can target your loot in ways that make it more lucrative to play that compared to other parts of the endgame, right? So imagine if suddenly main missions and, like I said, bounties, control points, whatever, if each of those have their own uniqueness and reason that you would want to go and play them compared to Countdown and Summit. How much more engaging and dynamic would the Division 2's endgame suddenly become if there's all this different content and reasons to go and replay it? I mean, seriously, this quote from Yannick has, like, legitimately taken my anticipation level for Season 4, as high as it already was with the DLC and everything, to another level, because this really seems like a whole new future for the Division 2. And combine this with the fact, like I said, we talked about last week, that there is a new item type coming with this update that we've talked about. There's going to be new pursuits with this update, new things to chase along with this whole revamp so that there's actually reasons to go and play each of the different pieces of content in the game. I am just incredibly excited to see how this pans out. I think that regardless of what happens after Season 4, some people have said they think that the Division 3 will be announced then and that they're then going to move on to that. Some people think there's going to be a Year 6. Whatever the case is, I think it's clear that the future of not only the Division 2, but the Division is bright overall because they're taking the time to go in and make it worthwhile to play. And I think for both existing players and newer players that are going to join over time, that's something that we can all recognize and something we can appreciate. And I really, really cannot wait to hear more about how this new vision of theirs for the endgame is going to play out. I very much hope you enjoyed this video. If so, a like would be greatly appreciated, and be sure to click that subscribe button as well as turning on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on all of my future Year 5 news and coverage. Let me know your thoughts on this latest quote from Yannick about Seasons 2.0 and the general endgame revamp we are getting in Year 5 Season 4. What do you make of this? How do you think they're going to take the endgame and make it just so much more revitalized? I'm really looking forward to see what they mean by that. I want to know how they plan to make each of the different parts of it worthwhile to play, but I have faith, and I have a feeling that once Year 5 Season 4 is here, the game is going to look drastically different than it ever has before, and I'm just really excited for that. If you want to connect with me, check out my Twitter and Discord links in the description below. We can keep chatting about this stuff beyond just the comment section here. But that's going to do it for me today, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.